By security guards waving a farewell as they get into the transfer van for the 3.5-mile ride to pad 39A. Neil Armstrong leading the way, then Mike Collinson, and finally Buzz Aldrin.
Jules, did you have any difficulty getting out to the Cape this morning?
Frank, we had no difficulty, but we practically didn't get to sleep at all last night just to be sure we wouldn't have any difficulty. The shot we're looking at from the helicopter now is over Highway A1A, the main north-south road along the Atlantic, and we're looking at the beach just below the South Gate, the old Gate 1 of the Cape where we came in this morning. You know, the drama may be here at Pad 39 and on the moon this Sunday, that unforgettable drama, but it's somehow, for me, also on the roads around this spit of land which Spanish explorers 352 years ago landed on and called Canaveral, for the fields of sugar cane. That's what Canaveral means in Spanish, cane fields. The fields of sugar cane they found growing here. We passed 10,000 odd cars that we've guesstimated, parked around the Gate 1 area at 4 a.m. when we got here, cars from every state, with little kids staring wide-eyed at the Saturn V glowing in the huge xenon spotlights 15 miles away. And we saw teenagers with telescopes. It was the very same road we came over 8 long years ago, 21 manned space flights ago, when we came out at just about the same hour to cover Alan Shepard's 15-minute suborbital hop, America's first manned space flight. Americans cared then, I think, and they care now. And it was a very moving scene for me because, well, we were tired. They were tired. They'd been up all night. All those thousands of people who we see now in daylight in those cars parked along the road that our live helicopter is showing us. Indeed, the helicopter pilot this morning, Bob Lockrow is his name, was the same man who used to fly us here with the very first film switches we did on flights and the very first live things. There's good luck Apollo 11 engraved in the sand. All going very smoothly here with the count. Among the distinguished visitors here this morning, along with Vice President Spiro Agnew, is the former President Lyndon Johnson. There's our live picture from the VIP stands on the other side of the VAB and Launch Control Center. Behind the former President is former NASA Administrator James Webb, sitting in the picture. And many other dignitaries gathered there. Some 8,000 dignitaries in all invited by the Space Agency as guests to be at this launch. And there's Mrs. Johnson being greeted with the former president.
42 minutes and 44 seconds away from liftoff now of Apollo 11, which is about the size of a United States Navy destroyer, as we pointed out to you a bit earlier. It stands higher than the Statue of Liberty, and it is the most sophisticated space vehicle in the world today. It is made up of 5 separate parts. Jules Bergman has the story on it.
Apollo 11 contains the lunar module, or LEM, which will weigh more than 32,000 pounds at launch time. The command module serves as a flight operations center and living quarters for the astronauts. After the third stage rocket sends Apollo 11 toward the moon, the onboard service module engine will be used to put the astronauts into lunar orbit and later to return them home to Earth. The total payload, nearly 100,000 pounds, rests on a Saturn V rocket. The first stage generates 7.5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. The second stage will carry the Apollo spacecraft and astronauts to an altitude of 100 miles. And then the third stage breaks Apollo 11 out of Earth orbit and propels the astronauts toward the moon. And this is what Eagle, the lunar module on Apollo 11, will look like after its legs are, its gear is put down after translunar flight has begun and as it heads toward the moon. In addition to this black and white covering, of course, it's covered by gold and black thermal foil, if you will, mylar foil, and black foil to protect it from heating as it heads around into lunar orbit and then down toward its descent on the moon. But essentially, that's what the vehicle looks like, a very ungainly machine. The astronauts still call it a thin, light-walled flying machine, a thin, light-walled structure, but it has proven to be one heck of a good flying machine on 2 flights now, Apollo 9 and Apollo 10. Launch Control is telling us now that things are proceeding very smoothly with the fueling and with topping off the liquid oxygen in the S1C, the Saturn main stage, all going very smoothly at T-minus 40 minutes, and we're lifting off at 9:32 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time as of now, everything proceeding very smoothly toward that pre-calculated liftoff time.
2 minutes, 10 seconds and counting. The target for the Apollo 11 astronauts, the moon at liftoff, will be at a distance of 218,096 miles away. We've just passed the 2-minute mark in the countdown. T-minus 1 minute, 54 seconds and counting. Our status board indicates that the oxidizer tanks in the second and third stages now have pressurized. We continue to build up pressure in all 3 stages here at the last minute to prepare it for liftoff. T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds on the Apollo mission, the flight to land of the first men on the moon. All indications coming in to the control center at this time indicate we are go. 1 minute, 25 seconds and counting. Our status board indicates the third stage completely pressurized. 80-second mark has now been passed. We'll go on full internal power at the 50-second mark in the countdown. Guidance system goes on internal at 17 seconds, leading up to the ignition sequence at 8.9 seconds. We're approaching the 60-second mark on the Apollo 11 mission. T-minus 60 seconds and counting. We passed T-minus 60. 55 seconds and counting. Neil Armstrong just reported back. It's been a real smooth countdown. We passed the 50-second mark. Power transfer is complete. We're on internal power with the launch vehicle at this time. 40 seconds away from the Apollo 11 liftoff. All the second stage tanks now pressurized. 35 seconds and counting. We are still go with Apollo 11. 30 seconds and counting. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds. 20 seconds and counting. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
We got a roll program. Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
Slowly, but gathering speed. Going beautifully, burning hot.
Plus 30 seconds.
Roll complete and a pitches program. One Bravo is a abort control mode. Altitude's 2 miles. Oh, well, in Houston, you're good at 1 minute.
Downrange 1 mile, altitude 4 miles now. Velocity 2,195 feet per second.
She's going beautifully.
We're through the region of maximum dynamic pressure now.
Apollo 11, 42,000 feet.
17 miles an hour, pitch range 12 miles high, velocity 1,000%.
Stand by on mode 1 Charlie. Mark, mode 1 Charlie. 1 Charlie.
Cliff Charlesworth taking a staging status.
This is Houston, you are go for staging. Inboard cutoff.
Inboard engines out.
I'm inboard cutoff.
Inboard cutoff exactly on schedule. Apollo 11 now 3,000 miles, now doing 3,650 miles an hour. 8.
Downrange 35 miles, 30 miles high. Standing by for the outboard engine cut down now.
Staging. And ignition.
Armstrong reporting staging and ignition. The first stage engines have burned out exactly on schedule. The second stage engines have lit off.
Houston, thrust is go. All engines, you're looking good. Hi, Roger. You're loud and clear, Houston.
41
3
miles.
minutes, downrange 70 miles, 43 miles high, velocity 9,300 feet per second.
We got skirt step. Roger, we confirm skirt step.
Apollo 11 going a little faster than expected, but perfectly within
Neil
limits.
Armstrong confirming both the engine skirt separation and the launch escape tower separation.
Houston, be advised the visual is go today. This is Houston, roger out. Yeah, they finally gave me a window to look out. Houston, your guidance is converged. You're looking good.
Downrange 140 miles, altitude 62 miles, velocity 10,300 feet per second.
11 Houston, you are a go at 4 minutes. Roger.
Still in sight from our long-range cameras.
Ground track.
Burning hot, straight and true all the way toward a moon 218,000 miles distant. A moment many Americans, many people never believed could happen or would happen.
190 miles downrange now, 72 miles high, velocity 11,000 feet per second.
And the first major hurdles have been passed for Apollo 11. All going very, very well. The first minutes of a 195-hour-long flight, ticking off almost without tension, almost like a regular airliner takeoff, but for the thunderous roar, the flame of the Saturn V.
Booster says it's looking good at 5 minutes.
11 Houston, you are go at 5 minutes. Roger, Apollo 11, go.
We're hearing Neil Armstrong live, reporting back to booster control, Capcom in mission
Downrange
control.
270 miles, altitude 82 miles, velocity 12,472 feet per second.
Slide S4B to COI capability. Okay.
That's 9,000 miles an hour.
S4B to COI capability.
That's 9,000 miles an hour. Confirmation that the
Apollo 11 could now get into orbit using the S4B if necessary.
Your living room. Thank you. You all are coming through beautifully, too.
very clear communications this morning, very clear air-to-ground from Apollo 11. That's Capcom Bruce McCandless you hear talking from Houston Mission Control. And occasionally Flight Director Cliff Charlesworth in the background. And down...
Everyone's reporting go here in the control center.
So it's 6 minutes, starting to get motors.
And our long-range...
Roger 11, your go from the ground at 6 minutes.
Our long-range cameras have lost the picture finally. Our cameras are now at pad 39, viewing that water deluge or dowsing system we told you about. Hundreds of thousands of gallons of water, saving the pad from being all but wiped out by the heat and the flame. The water still going, still keeping cool. Our animated view now showing us what's happening up there at 6 minutes and 35 seconds into the flight of Apollo 11.
In between the second stage and the third stage, the fuel uncovers a sensor starting that sequence.
We're coming up almost to the point where the second stage S2 rockets will burn out.
Uncovered at 8 minutes 17 seconds with outboard engine cutoff, 9 minutes 11 seconds on the second stage.
Apollo 11's go at 7 minutes. 11, this is Houston. Roger, your go from the ground at 7 minutes. Level sense arm at 8+17. Outboard cutoff at 9+11. Roger.
Very close to
Downrange
nominal figures.
530 miles, altitude 95 miles, velocity 17,358 feet per second.
Apollo 11 has almost reached orbital velocity now. It'll require another minute of burn of the S2 second stage. President Johnson in the VIP stands with Lady Bird Johnson, obviously relaxed, happy at the way the launch went, and Vice President Agnew next to the president.
7 minutes, 41 seconds.
Roger, we confirm.
Inboard engines are out on the second stage as planned.
Inboard engine burnout exactly on schedule at 7 minutes 40 seconds. Apollo 11 now about 3 minutes away from going into Earth's orbit over mid-Atlantic.
Apollo 11, go on all sources.
New York, go at 8 minutes.
I've just built the mixture ratio shift.
And galloping
We
along.
got PU shift down here too.
Apollo 11 galloping along now at more than 12,500 miles an hour.
United States Board, these thunderstorms downrange is about all.
That was Neil Armstrong. We couldn't make out what he said.
11, this is Houston. You are go for staging. Over.
Understand, go for staging.
Stand by for mode 4 capability.
Mode 4.
Mark, mode 4 capability.
Mode 4 and Apollo 11 could get into orbit using the service propulsion system now. Altitude is 100 miles, downrange 883 miles. Outboard engine cutoff.
And ignition.
Ignition confirmed. Thrusters go, 11.
And we have a good third stage now.
Third stage ignition on schedule, speed building up just the way it should. Looking very, very good.
Velocity 23,128 feet per second. Downrange 1,000 miles, altitude 101 miles.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. At 10 minutes, you are go.
Roger, 11, go.
Capcom Bruce McCandless giving the reports here from the control center.
A relaxed Neil Armstrong saying, "Ah, Roger, we're go."
Apollo 11, this is Houston. Predicted cutoff at 11 plus 42. Over.
1142, Roger.
Downrange 1,175 miles. Velocity 24,190 feet per second. Altitude 102 nautical miles. Apollo 11 still go on all sources.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. You are go at 11.
And ticking away the last 2 seconds.
We're predicting third stage shutdown at 11 minutes 42 seconds.
And Apollo 11 is just about ready to go into orbit in a few seconds from now.
Velocity 25,254 feet per second. Downrange 1,400 miles now. Altitude 102.8 nautical miles.
Shutdown.
Shutdown right on time.
1.4 by 103.6.
Roger, shut down, and we copy 101.4 by 103.6.
And Apollo 11 is in orbit. Scratchy.
Apollo 11, this is Houston. You are confirmed to go for orbit.
When the third stage is fired, the astronauts will then be inserted into an Earth parking orbit. The guidance system has already computed the trajectory needed to intercept the moon. The confirmation of that trajectory or course will be relayed by Houston to the astronauts. 2 hours and 40 minutes after launch over the Pacific, the third stage engine will be restarted, and when an escape velocity of nearly 25,000 miles per hour is reached, Apollo 11 will be injected into a translunar trajectory. Soon after, the panels of the spacecraft's lunar module adapter are jettisoned. The Apollo Command and Service Module then separates from the booster. The astronauts start the docking maneuver, rotating Apollo 180 degrees and then, using their small thruster rockets, dock with the LEM. The third stage will be jettisoned when the docking maneuver is completed about 2 hours after translunar injection. The astronauts, using star sightings backed up by mission control, guidance radar, and computers, then work up the data to make mid-course corrections and set their course to intercept the moon 3 days later. Depending on how accurate the rocket engine burns to get away from Earth, none or as many as 3 mid-course corrections may be needed. Apollo's speed decreases from 25,000 to less than 4,000 miles per hour en route. Then, near the moon, as lunar gravity begins to exert its influence, the speed of the spacecraft increases up to 6,000 miles per hour. Apollo 11 is in a free return trajectory, which will carry it around the moon and back to Earth for recovery if problems have developed. But if all has gone well, Apollo 11's onboard service module engine will be fired and the spacecraft will be placed into lunar orbit. Because of the danger of mechanical failure, all of the systems can be overridden by the astronauts if the automatic systems aren't working perfectly. 81 hours into the flight, Armstrong and Aldrin transfer into the lunar module for the second time, completing their checkout of the lunar landing spacecraft. They remove the docking probe and drogue from the tunnel connecting the command and lunar modules and equalize the pressure in both vehicles. The lunar module pilot then floats through the docking tunnel overhead and into the LEM. One of the first tasks for the lunar module pilot is to activate the LEM's environmental control system and to change his suit connections to the LEM's umbilicals. Now, today the moon is the target, and we're going to get the word on that TLI burn coming up in just a moment now from Mission Control. And we're now 14 seconds away from TLI burn. Mission Control is counting down. There's ignition. There's the word from Mission Control. Ignition over the South Pacific for the translunar insertion burn.
We confirm ignition, and the thrusters go.
Thrust is built up to get them headed up to escape velocity speed of 25,000 miles an hour. The burn took place over the southwestern Pacific 2 hours and 24 minutes into the flight of Apollo 11.
Guidance looking good.
Let's go to Mission Control now for the talk down to the separation maneuver.
This is Houston, we copy.
Capcom the canvas saying he copied, but very faint transmission. Let's see if we can pick it up now.
We confirm the separation here on the ground.
Separation confirmed. The third major hurdle of the flight accomplished. Next, that docking and extraction of the LEM.
All right, we now have a picture from Apollo 11, so let's go to Houston for the conversation between the spacecraft and Houston, and we'll see these pictures. There's the Earth.
The Earth from 130,000 nautical, or about 149,000 statute miles.
Roger, you're seeing Earth as we see it at our left-hand window, just a little more than a half Earth. We're looking at the eastern Pacific Ocean. And the north half of the top half of the screen, we can see North America, Alaska, United States, Canada, Mexico, and Central America. South America becomes invisible just off beyond the terminator or inside the shadow. We can see the oceans with a definite blue cast, see white bands of major cloud formations across the Earth, and can see coastlines that got the western U.S., San Joaquin Valley, the Sierra Mountain Range, the peninsula of Baja California, and can see some cloud formations over southeastern U.S. There's one definite mild storm southwest of Alaska, looks like about 500 to 1,000 miles, and another
very minor storm showing the south end of the screen near the, a long way south of the equator, probably 45 degrees or more south latitude.
So you're saying, Cliff Charlesworth, that
We can still see the Earth through the left window, and it appears that we can see a floodlight off to the left, either that or some sun shafting through the hatch window.
Almost looks like two Earths.
It's floodlight. Now we're coming in. Can't quite make out who that had. That's Big Mike Collins there. Well, you got a little bit of... Yeah, hello there, sports fans. You got a little bit of me, plus Neil's in the center couch, and Buzz is doing the camera work this time. Roger, it's a little dark now, 11. Maybe a bigger f-stop might help. Yeah, that didn't work. It's getting a lot better now, 11. Mikey coming in 5 by. Got a good... Well, I put on a coat and tie if I'd known about this ahead of time. Is Buzz holding your cue cards for you over? Cue cards have a no. We have... We are very comfortable up here, though. We do have a happy home. There's plenty of room for the three of us, and I think we're all learning to find our favorite little corner to sit in. The zero G is very comfortable, but after a while you get to the point where you sort of get tired of rattling around and banging off the ceiling and the floor and the side, so you tend to find a little corner somewhere and put your knees up or something like that to wedge yourself in, and that seems more at home. Roger, looks like Neil is coming in 5 by there, 11. Mike, see you in the background. The definition is really outstanding. The colors are good. It's a real good picture we're getting here of the Commander Armstrong. Yeah, Neil's standing on his head again. He's trying to make me nervous. Roger. He's disappearing up into the tunnel, of course, as he would going into the lunar module, only backward. Roger, we can see portions of the LAP now, the systems test meter panel in the lower part of the picture, or we did have it anyway. Okay, and then directly behind his head are our optical instruments, the sextant and the telescope that we use to take sightings with. Roger, copy, and we see the disky flashing with a 651. In fact, we can read registers 1 and 2 quite clearly.
That's the computer.
Yeah, the old gain angles telling us which way the Earth is.
Good. Read the numbers.
Copy. That's a beautiful picture. Clarity is outstanding. We can also give you the time of day in our system of measured elapsed time. Elapsed time, 34 hours, 16 minutes, and 15 seconds. Roger. Can you see that clearly enough, Charlie? Roger, Apollo 11. We can see it counting up every second. We got 34:17:02 now. Okay, back to the high gain angles. Roger. Swing in. Now we've amputated those.
Best quality picture we've ever seen from the inside of a spacecraft.
It has to be able to read those numbers like that. It's like a tote board of the racetrack.
even if it is their computer display keyboard or disk key readout.
11, Houston, we have a beautiful rainbow there, and as you move the camera around, Leslie, that looks like the star chart coming into view now, over.
Yeah, those are Buzz's two star charts that he is using right now as sunshades over the right-hand window, window number 5.
Roger, we see the sun shining in through it behind him and plotting out the correction, the ecliptic plane, and the stars that you're using for the navigation.
You're right. He doesn't really need the charts, he's got them memorized, it's just for show.
We copy.
Well, we're pointing up in this direction. We see out our side windows the sun going by, and of course out one of our windows right now we've got the Earth. Now right behind my window, of course, we have the sun, because the sun is illuminating the star chart that we see. This line represents the ecliptic plane, and these lines, vertical lines, represent our reference system that the spacecraft is using at this time. As we approach the moon will gradually grow larger and larger in size, and eventually it will be in eclipse. It will be eclipsing the sun as we go behind it as we approach the lunar orbit insertion maneuver.
Roger, 11. Could you attempt a little bit better focus there, 11, over?
Looks like Mike Collins is moving the camera around the inside of the spacecraft again, back to Buzz Aldrin's star charts.
And now Aldrin's the only one we haven't seen. He was talking just a moment ago, but we haven't seen him yet.
So part of the smooth painted is a semi-bald head.
11, Houston, that's a lot better on the star chart now. We can make out the ecliptic plane and the planets and the sun and the moon as they're drawn at various places throughout the ecliptic plane, over.
Okay, Charlie.
There's Aldrin.
Slightly out of focus shot, and a little audio breakup beginning.
If we can get some of the wires untangled here, we'll give you a demonstration of how easy push-ups are up here.
11, Roger. Good view of Buzz there.
One of the reasons these pictures are such good quality is they're using a small floodlight inside the cabin to help illuminate their faces and the instruments.
When it gets pretty hard doing it that way, why we just roll over and do it the other way.
Right, we copy. Couldn't figure out whether that was a chin-up or a push-up. Just take your choice, I guess.
Buzz Aldrin going through a complete roll now in weightlessness. And floating his way forward in the cabin from the lower equipment bay.
Here's a champion pole
Well,
vaulter.
looks like it's probably almost your dinner time down there, Earth. We'll show you our food cabinet here in a second.
11, Roger.
You know, Frank, in weightlessness, even I could be a champion acrobat. It doesn't take a Buzz Aldrin. And now we're looking in the left-hand lower equipment bay where the food is stored and prepared. That's probably Mike Cullen.
Houston, we see a box full of goodies there, over.
They've got
No, we really have them, Charlie. We got all kinds of good stuff. We've got coffee up here in the upper left, and various breakfast items, bacon in little small bites, and beverages like fruit drink. And over in the center part, we have all kinds of things. Let me pull one out here and see what it is. Right. Would you believe you're looking at chicken stew here? All you have to do is 3 ounces of hot water for 5 or 10 minutes. Now we get our hot water out of a little spigot up here with a filter on it that filters any gases that may be in the drinking water out. And we just stick the end of this little tube in the end of the spigot and pull the trigger 3 times for 3 ounces of hot water, and then mush it up and slice the end off it, and there you go, beautiful chicken stew. Sounds delicious.
And that's their little emergency flashlight.
Yeah, the food so far has been very good. We couldn't be happier with it. Roger. That flashlight a second? The surgeons are saying thank you there for that. And it is sort of down in a dark corner, so we have a flashlight here to help us see things. And if I can let go of it carefully, it'll just hold itself right where it is. Roger. As long as to disturb it will. Apollo 11, Houston, that's a pretty good demonstration. You started out really stable there, Mike. Well, the problem is no matter how carefully you let go, you bump it just a tiny little bit, set it in motion, and once in motion, there she goes. Try that again. It looks fairly stable now with slow rotation.
A little 13-pound portable TV camera shooting these pictures, handheld by the astronauts themselves. Now more than 130,000 miles out in space.
I sent their compliments to the chef this afternoon about the salmon salad. The chef made salmon. Fisher
Well,
very
so much
happy.
for the food department. I'm going to close up the store down here. Roger, we copy. Charlie, we checked out the cable lengths, and we're thinking we might want to see if we can take the TV into the LEM with us tomorrow for part of the time. Over. Roger, good show. We'd like to see it if it'll reach that far. Over. We'll give it a try. Roger.
And we're seeing Mike Collins closing up the food locker. That was Buzz Aldrin we heard, saying they might take the camera up into the lunar module tomorrow at 56 hours into the flight when they check it out for the first time.
Clear definition there of Collins' face.
The camera has been clamped on using some small hand clamps they use for their still picture cameras and motion picture cameras.
And where I sleep is down underneath this couch. Houston, Roger.
And Mike Collins is apparently about to show us a demonstration of his sleep station.
Slowly sinking into the sack there. Yeah, it's really comfortable.
Good morning.
Forgot to give Buzz his flashlight back.
They carry some 7 of those little emergency flashlights, Frank, which are really meant as survival flashlights in case they come down on the water and are stranded at sea at night. But they end up using them for everything.
Well, the one question that is raised most often, over and over again, talk about redundancy, is why go to the moon? Well, for scientists, of course, the answer is obvious. They feel that the unexplored moon, thus far unexplored, will tell us many things about our Earth that we cannot find out by studying the Earth itself. In making it a comfortable place to live here, we have more or less wiped out its early history.
And many other dignitaries gathered there. Some 8,000 dignitaries in all invited by the Space Agency as guests to be at this launch. And there's Mrs. Johnson being greeted with the former president.
42 minutes and 44 seconds away from liftoff now of Apollo 11, which is about the size of a United States Navy destroyer, as we pointed out to you a bit earlier. It stands higher than the Statue of Liberty, and it is the most sophisticated space vehicle in the world today. It is made up of 5 separate parts. Jules Bergman has the story on it.
Apollo 11 contains the lunar module, or LEM, which will weigh more than 32,000 pounds at launch time. The command module years ago landed on and called Canaveral, for the fields of sugar cane. That's what Canaveral means in Spanish, cane fields. The fields of sugar cane they found growing here. We passed 10,000 odd cars, what we guesstimated, parked around the Gate 1 area at 4 a.m. when we got here, cars from every state, with little kids staring wide-eyed at the Saturn V glowing in the huge xenon spotlights 15 miles away. And we saw teenagers with telescopes. It was the very same road we came over 8 long years ago, 21 manned space flights ago, when we came out at just about the same hour to cover Alan Shepard's 15-minute suborbital hop, America's first manned space flight. Americans cared then, I think, and they care now. And it was a very moving scene for me because, well, we were tired. They were tired. They'd been up all night. All those thousands of people who we see now in daylight in those cars parked along the road that our live helicopter is showing us. Indeed, the helicopter pilot this morning, Bob Lockrow is his name, was the same man who used to fly us here with the very first film switches we did on flights and the very first live things. There's good luck Apollo 11 engraved in the sand. All going very smoothly here with the count. Among the distinguished visitors here this morning, along with Vice President Spiro Agnew, is the former President Lyndon Johnson. There's our live picture from the VIP stands on the other side of the VAB and Launch Control Center. Behind the former President is former NASA Administrator James Webb. Sitting in the picture, Jewel serves as a flight operations center and living quarters for the astronauts. After the third stage rocket sends Apollo 11 toward the moon, the onboard service module engine will be used to put the astronauts into lunar orbit and later to return them home to Earth. The total payload, nearly 100,000 pounds, rests on a Saturn V rocket. The first stage generates 7.5 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. The second stage will carry the Apollo spacecraft and astronauts to an altitude of 100 miles. And then the third stage breaks Apollo 11 out of Earth orbit and propels the astronauts toward the moon. And this is what Eagle, the lunar module on Apollo 11, will look like after its legs are, its gear is put down after translunar flight. By security guards waving a farewell as they get into the transfer van for the 3.5-mile ride to pad 39A. Neil Armstrong leading the way, then Mike Collinson, and finally Buzz Aldrin.
Jules, did you have any difficulty getting out to the Cape this morning?
Frank, we had no difficulty, but we practically didn't get to sleep at all last night just to be sure we wouldn't have any difficulty. The shot we're looking at from the helicopter now is over Highway A1A, the main north-south road along the Atlantic, and we're looking at the beach just below the South Gate, the old Gate 1 of the Cape where we came in this morning. You know, the drama may be here at Pad 39 and on the moon this Sunday, that unforgettable drama, but it's somehow, for me, also on the roads around this spit of land which Spanish explorers 352 years